Hello, everybody, and thank you so much for joining me again today for another episode of Innerviews. And for those of you who follow the channel, you might remember we chatted with Hanneke before, and today we're going to chat with her again about World Food Day. So, Hanneke, over to you. Can you tell us a little bit more about World Food Day?
Hi, Melody. Nice to see you again. So World Food Day is the 16th of October every year. It's been going, I think, for about 3 years. It's the United Nations FAO, Food and Agriculture Organization, attempt to start, getting people more engaged around food waste and food surplus, which is obviously what we do as NOSH Food Rescue. So it's celebrated around the world. We're busy putting together some campaigns to get people a little bit more engaged with their food and aware of where it all goes and where it all comes from.
So you say this is quite a new initiative, only 3 years old?
I think this is the third year that they're celebrating this one now. I think it's part of what the World FAO, the UN FAO has always done. I think it's the first time that they've actually put an annual date to it and said, right, this is a hook for us to hang a lot of awareness on. I think it is the third year that it's on now. So you can go and have a look at their website, the UN FAO, and you Google World Food Day, and you'll be able to find what it is, whatever your area is, whether there's something happening where you are.
Okay, that's awesome. So for the community managers out there who are watching right now, maybe you want to talk about World Food Day in your communities during the month of October. It might be an interesting topic to get some engagement going in your groups. So Hanneke, tell me more about why is World Food Day necessary, and why is your organization NOSH necessary? A lot of people are not aware of the food waste that is out there. So perhaps you could touch on that for us.
Okay, so yeah, NOSH Food Rescue, we source and intercept food and produce that would otherwise go to waste, that would otherwise go to landfill. So the beginning of my journey in 2015, I inherited a soup kitchen because, as you know, I don't say no, I can't say no. And I started becoming aware of food waste when somebody arrived at the soup kitchen one day with 2 big black bags full of cake and muffins and donuts and said, can you use these? Our store throws this away every single day. And that got me started on learning more about food waste. So globally, we throw away 30% of what is produced globally around the world. Some countries more than others. The sort of more Western, the wealthier countries throw away between 45 and 48, sometimes as high as more than half of everything that they produce. It just does not go for animal or human consumption. But here in South Africa, we are on the global average of 30%. To give you a figure, now when we start talking about millions, when we look at that kind of volume, we don't have an instinctive grasp of what that looks like. But out of our production here in South Africa, we produce about 31 million tons of produce a year, of which we throw away 10.6 million tons of produce a year. It does not go for animal or human consumption. And in the meantime, we're sitting with, at most reliable sort of calculations and statistics, 17 million people in South Africa that don't know where their next meal is coming from on any given day. So we have huge amounts of hunger, starvation, and all the things that come on top of it, the malnutrition, the lack of education. There's a whole generation that is not going to be able to be competitive in any form of an employment environment. And we're throwing away 10.6 million tons of food, which it's a lot of it is logistics, a lot of it is legislation, a lot of it is liability. There's a lot of work to be done to access that 10.6 million tons safely and responsibly and get it to the right places. So that's why I feel that a World Food Day is indeed a relevant thing. How many of the people listening today are aware of this kind of thing? And unless they actually have, some form of engagement in the food sector, how many people are actually aware of it? And this is it's a lovely hook to just say, hey, we're driving international attention to this crime. I mean, okay, so I called it fucking criminal on BBC television. And BBC TV said, well, do you know this is BBC TV? Do you want to rephrase that? I said, no, I don't think so. This is what it is, you know. So, you know me, I speak from the heart, shoot from the hip, and I'm no filters. So, but it's absolutely necessary that we engage with these topics. Food is life, and food is at the center of community. You want to talk about community, you know, and being thrifty and aware and being not wasteful and being mindful around that stuff of life is it's at the core of everything that we should be doing. So there's definitely sort of scope for more of these hooks to hang more conversations on. And I'd be delighted to start engaging with some of your community managers. I mean, obviously, you know, in your environment, being thrifty and being mindful and being aware and not wasting and sustainability are very strong cornerstones of what you do. And there's a lot of overlap. We're just looking at different types of materials, different types of raw materials. So it could be interesting. Do you have a Gauteng group for your textiles? I actually can't remember. I think you do, hey?
I do.
And it would be interesting maybe to engage, yeah.
Because I'm spread so thin, for those of you who are watching, I have 200 Facebook groups. And because I'm spread so thin, there are some of the groups I don't get to as often as I would like to. And the Gauteng one is one of those. So if you would like to chat about different ways to expand groups and how it works, if you're thinking of doing them in a regional or local way, that's another conversation we could have. So,
well, you obviously see that I haven't jumped onto the bandwagon of saying, yeah, I'll run with your Gauteng group.
Absolutely.
So I'm here.
And you've got hands full. Doesn't NOSH have a group on Facebook also?
Yeah, so NOSH, I created as a group and as a page. And this, I think for X Factor Crafts, I created it as a page. I think I got about 15 different groups that I'm involved, that I started around gardening, around permaculture, around sustainability, various things. But for NOSH specifically, it might be interesting. I created a group and a page. And the page was for me a more static way of creating a history online of what it is we do as NOSH. A little bit more of the official sort of messaging and broadcasting comes from, whereas the group for me is what drives engagement, which I think is where you drive community. You know, the people who follow the page are interested in keeping up with what you're doing. In my mind, the people who follow the group are the ones that actually want to engage with you and drive change. So for me, there's big value in having both. Although because I'm stretched thin as well, there's a lot of cross-posting, so a lot of the content is the same. I find that I actually get a lot more traction with the group post because people are engaged with the material. They engage with what we want to do, and they want to be informed, and they want to kind of, you know, come and say hi and post their recipes and say, oh wow, 10 tons of frozen chicken feet, what did you do with those? You know, so they're two very different sort of approaches as to how to use the social media.
Absolutely. And are you using your Facebook group to recruit volunteers for your cause?
Sorry, that's a problem. I do, although at the moment I'm sufficiently overwhelmed that I actually don't always know what to do with volunteers when they do say, hey, we want to help. So we're setting up a volunteer program where we can start slotting people in. But we tend to find that when people have volunteering in mind, they tend to want to come and chop veggies and feed people. They want to be engaging with the actual real, the sort of that poverty line. And that's not something I refer to a lot of that as poverty porn, which is it really goes against my grain. What NOSH actually needs a lot more help with is skills in growing NOSH. I may need an accountant that can give their time pro bono to help us do the books. We may need a social media manager. We need a social media manager. Let's put it out there. I can't do it all, and I don't do it particularly well. So, you know, we need those types of skills to grow NOSH, which will mean that we will end up feeding more people, because we have a network of about 150 beneficiary organizations that rely on us to a greater or lesser extent for produce. But if we have more hands on the actual NOSH day, we will be able to grow that. And it's not necessarily physically working with food, that type of physical, go paint a classroom or go decorate some walls outside of primary school. It's not that type of volunteerism that we really need as NOSH. We need some real skills in a business environment to help us grow. And that's not always the kind of engagement that we get when we put a broad call out for volunteers. We tend to get the kind of people and often the kind of businesses that want to come and they sort of, they branded business t-shirts and take pictures for the CSI of hungry kids. And I'm sorry, that's why I say I speak from the heart, and it might put some people off, but that is the reality of it. So for us to create a proper volunteer program, we need to structure it first before we can actually start kind of recruiting the human capital. We try not to say no to anybody who does offer. And for that kind of physical stuff, we try to place them with our beneficiary organizations. But it's a great channel to do it. And I've had a couple of times where, I don't know if you remember, we got 11 pallets of frozen churros that needed debranding in the freezer room. And I put out a call for volunteers, and they came and they got freezer suits, and we sat taking labels off 11 pallets of boxes of bags of frozen churros. So yes, there's definitely, it's a resource to reach people. But we also need to definitely grow the group. So I'd love to see more engagement with your communities to see how we can grow the group, because else it starts becoming a relatively small resource pool, and the same people feel they're being called on time and time again. So definitely want to drive growth of the group, and I would love your tips and tricks. And if any of your community managers are keen on engaging, let them tell me how they did it. I'd love to learn. I have to learn because I'm pretty clueless.
So I can give you a couple of engagement tips that are really, really simple, and a lot of people are going to go, oh, but Mel, those are too simple. And there are devices that I use again and again. So the one is a poll. The poll is one of the most underutilized tools, I feel, in groups. Polls get people to engage who normally don't engage, because they don't have to come out with words or reveal anything about themselves. They can just click a button, and a poll is still fairly anonymous. So a poll is a very, very good way of getting people to engage who normally wouldn't. The other method I use is questions. So a question is an invitation to open a conversation. If you want to raise engagement in groups, ask lots of questions, encourage your members to get involved in answering. And in that peer-to-peer communication that then begins to happen, your group will become more sticky for search engines. So the Facebook algorithm will send more people to your group if there is genuine peer-to-peer engagement happening within the conversation. So it doesn't have to be rocket science or anything complicated. If you just begin to shift some of your existing communication into a different style. So in between, you want to pepper in some polls and some questions with your existing content. You will find that it will uplift engagement a great deal in a very natural and easy way. Is that useful for you?
I'm on the receiving end of a lot of your polls and your questions, because I think I belong to a whole bunch of your groups as well. I think I'll stop after a while.
Makes sense. Makes sense. Don't try and follow me. You'll get tired.
I didn't. I gave up after a while. I think, look, I've walked this path with you for a long time. And in the beginning, I clicked on everything. I followed everything because it was also doing that for you. We're part of the thing, but eventually I'm just get up.
And I'm super thankful for all
well done
to get it off the ground. So, Hanneke, there's one thing in your story that for me is very inspiring, and that is your gumption to just get up and do this thing. You know, the whole country's saying, this is a terrible statistic. We've got all these hungry people. We've got all this food going waste. The system's broken. What can we do about it? And you're going, I'm going to do this. And that is what separates you from the rest. What do you think it is in your makeup that makes you that way?
I don't know. I think you've known me for long enough. You might be able to answer the question as well as I. I don't know. I guess it's a sense of civic participation. I'm not going to sit back and do nothing. The sense of that civil injustice happening out there. I've been an activist and a rescuer of all the things forever. I rescued some ice some time ago because I didn't want the electricity that was used to convert the water into ice to go to waste by it just melting. So froze my hands stupid to try and fish ice out of a cooler box and put it back in the freezer where it belongs. So a serial rescuer, and I think a lot of that attitude is in me. I've been that forever. You know. So, but yeah, that and I started NOSH with the premise of start where you are, use what you have, do what you can. So I inherited the soup kitchen. And then I started, through my journey with food waste, started having a look at what internationally and locally is done when you want to create a food bank, because that's in essence what NOSH was become, a food bank. And I started seeing all the big corporate ways of doing it, and you got to do fundraising to put together a feasibility study. Then you do fundraising to get a board. Then you do fundraising to do a business plan. Then you do fundraising for equipment. And after 3 years or 4 years, if you've done it this way, you might finally actually get to feed someone. And that goes completely against my grain. So you start where you see a resource, you see a hole that you can use to plug it, and you just go. And I think that's, yes, I'm sure along the way I've made lots of mistakes and things have been done inefficiently and they've been done with burnout always hovering in the background, but you actually just get on with it. And I think that's what's at the core of a lot of that gumption. It's not necessarily gumption, I think. Well, maybe other people would call it that, but just do it. And we can all do things. It's like the Mandela Day, where the slogan is, it's in your hands. These are hands. These hands do things. And you know, I think maybe because the value of an individual in today's society is so reduced. As an individual, you have so little power. We've been, I won't say emasculated, it's wrong gender, but we've been made powerless because we feel, what is our one voice? What is that one voice going to do? What is this one set of hands going to do? So we need to re-empower ourselves. And I think Facebook groups is a really great way of meeting like-minded people, saying, hey, there's one hand and let me add mine. And all of a sudden, you know, there's engagement happening. So I think it's a fantastic set of tools out there. And yeah, they were black this weekend, actually. You'd know why they were black this weekend. There's still some dye in the nail bed. But because I have to be here and with the Chefs with Compassion for a photo shoot thing, I had to just lose the gorilla hands.
Clean yourself up for the new role. That's wonderful.
I always say to everybody, I don't like using bleach on my hands, and I don't. But occasionally, you know, you can't cross-brand everything that I do. I've got my finger in lots of different pies, literally. Pies, sometimes.
So for people, maybe let's have a local conversation, because you can talk to people in South Africa. For people in South Africa who would like to be more mindful about their food waste and who would possibly like to get involved in a program like NOSH, where they are kind of helping to direct food that's in the use stream towards people who really need it. How could they go about doing that?
So my plan would be to start doing a more national expansion during the course of the next year. 2023 is national expansion. 2024 is global takeover. There we go. So I think if people were to reach out to me and say, "Hey, saw you on Mel's channel. I'd like to engage. I'd like to explore." The reason I'm targeting it that way is I don't want them to fall into the general pool of volunteer requests so that I get overwhelmed. Because I do need people, and I want to focus the limited resources we have on people that are passionate. rather than saying, okay, my plan is to go to Pofadder this month, but I have nobody in Pofadder, then I'm going to throw resources at something. It's not necessarily where the energy flows. So if I have somebody that says, hey, I'm in Springbok and I am so super keen, then I know that I have a people resource that I can start playing with. So I'd love to engage on that level. From a personal perspective, people reducing food waste in their own homes. In South Africa, when you have a look at that 10.6 million tons, 18% of that gets wasted at household level. So I tend not to want to lecture the South Africans and a lot of African people, for example, because the rest of the African countries, that's only 5%. We waste more at household level than the rest of Africa does. But a lot of the problem, the larger amounts of waste, lies with agriculture, lies with our road infrastructure, lies with the transport infrastructure. So I don't like to lecture individuals on their personal food waste so much. I feel they need to get up on their hind legs and start becoming activists, and kind of hang out with us and get as passionate about food waste as we are. But looking at food wastage and surplus in your own home is a way of keeping it front of mind. So I don't want to lecture, but I am going to lecture a little. So be aware of it. Have a look at the websites. There's another big food bank called Food Forward. They're based in Cape Town, but they are national. But they don't operate on the same level as what NOSH does. They're much more corporate. They follow that 3-year formal plan. Got funding, so they're a very different organization, but we are both looking at not wasting food and feeding hungry people. There's SA Harvest that does similar things. They also went through the more formal process. We're all aware of each other, and we sit on the same platforms. But yeah, engage and look in your personal community. I mean, I like to do dinners, as you know. I don't think you've been to one of my odd plate dinners. You've not been in the area when I've had one. What are you doing on the 17th of November? No, it's still too far. But for people to start organizing cookouts in their own community, for example. So we did that for Mandela Day through Chefs with Compassion, which is the other nonprofit that we started at the beginning of COVID. We did a big Mandela Day soup drive, and we did over 100,000 cups of soup in one single day.
Wow.
But that was around the country with lots of hotels and people getting involved. And so have a pantry clear out. Get your friends together. Let everybody have a look through their pantry and see that half a bag of lentils that they don't like, or they've gone keto and they can no longer use the pasta rice, and there may be some sad veggies in the back of the fridge. Get together with your friends, open a bottle of wine, cook it up into a soup or a stew, freeze it if you have the capacity, and hand it out. It's a lovely way of on a small local level engaging around that. And that's also a network I'd love to build, is start creating these sort of small cells of home cooks that are engaging in their own community, and maybe hanging out with people who are already running feeding schemes, for example, because there's no doubt that in your community, in your area, there may be a church that's running a feeding scheme, or there may be a Meals on Wheels, or there's lots of different people and organizations doing a lot of feeding. And as an individual, you could slot in with that. Ask them what they need. How can you help? And how can we start channeling the surplus that we create in those directions as well? Instead of just going to buy, ingredients, let's have a look at those resources, and let's start chatting more to the retailers, and let's start chatting more to hospitality industry and restaurateurs, and how we can access that. We need a network. I've called them, well, internationally they're referred to as food waste warriors. So I've started on a volunteer ambassador program where you have to be our eyes and ears in your community. I can't reach them all, so I'd really love people to engage around that. And you'll be surprised when I want people to send in recipes. What do you do with the stems of the broccoli, or do you normally throw them away? How do you rejuvenate limp celery? Oh, you can chop the bottom off, stick it in a glass of water. There's so many lovely tips and tricks, but I need help to pull that all together and create a resource for everybody to start accessing, and a recipe database. And there's just so many fun ways of engaging around food. Yeah.
I can definitely.
What do you do?
I can
based.
definitely see where you could use a content manager right now. So,
I'm open to volunteers.
so Hanneke, I see we are getting near to the end of our time. And I'm going to put all of the links that we've spoken about into the description of this video for those of you who are watching. Do you have any parting thoughts for anyone who's watching about World Food Day? Have you got any plans for NOSH on World Food Day that we need to hear about? What have you got planned for World Food Day?
Ah, nothing really specific. I think I need to concentrate my energy on the actual channels that I have, the group and the page. So I would love to recommend to people come and hang out with me there, rather than kind of spreading my energy all over. It's about awareness and engagement. You wherever you are, you can engage with NOSH or with people like NOSH, and if there isn't one, start one. There's no particular pearls of wisdom at this stage, apart from just engaging. That's really my invitation to hashtag that start in the UK. It's called Feed Bellies Not Bins. It's a nice hashtag, and I'm sure you'd be able to find some people, organizations in your community that are using that hashtag. It's a nice way of getting the info out there. But yeah, for now, I'd say just come and play with me. Come and play with me at the NOSH Food Rescue group. And if you're in Gauteng, I'd love to see you at the Odd Play Dinner on the 17th of November. 17th of November.
17th of November. So for those of you in my Gauteng network who are watching, I will definitely put all of that information into the links of this video. And try out Hanneke's Odd Plate Dinner. So what do you get at an Odd Plate Dinner, Hanneke?
We only know the day before, because what we do is we have a look at all the produce that we've rescued, whatever that looks like, and we give it to a qualified chef, normally an exec chef, who has a team of students from the culinary schools, and they turn it into the most amazing fine dining experience, and it might be a 3-course, might be a 5-course. We had a donation of 500 kilos of smoked salmon some time ago, so maybe there's salmon. Somebody came and dropped off 4 full legs, bone in of wildebeest, so there might be wildebeest. It might be a vegetarian dinner. It really depends on what we get in, but it's going to be prepared with skill and with love, and just to show that it can actually, food waste doesn't necessarily have to be an icky thing. With a bit of TLC and a bit of skill, it can really be turned into amazing food, and there is still value and dignity in this. So for us, it's an experience, it's an opportunity to engage with the people, the diners, and introduce them to some of our beneficiary organizations who normally attend, and also start educating the next generation of restaurateurs and chefs, and chef students, to look differently at the ingredients that move through their kitchens. So exciting. 17th of November.
Okay, that Odd Plate Dinner concept is wonderful. I love the idea. So when you said Odd Plate Dinner, I kind of pictured plates full of leftovers, not beautiful fine dining by a top quality chef. That's quite something. That's quite an experience. Thank you so much for spending time with me today and for giving me a window into your world. I appreciate it so very much.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. See you soon.
And thank you to all of you for watching. Have a wonderful day.